Everybody, it's the last day of CWC 2021, and this is the final edition of Suity Fruity. I'm here again as your host, Sarton, and I'm here with JB up here. And how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thank you, Sarton. Thank you for those tunes. Someone going to be offering to map those, I'm sure. You'll be famous. Featured artist, Conrad, maybe? Let's go.
Oh, don't tell him yet, don't tell him yet. Gotta keep everything incognito here, except for the results that happened in the previous week of CWC, because that's not really that incognito, right? That's
of course. That's what we're here for, man.
That's exactly what we're here for. We're going to recap those. There's 4 matches we're going to be talking about from last week, and we're going to give our quick predictions of what we think will happen today on our final day of CWC 2021 with the 3 leftover teams. Looking forward to today. It's going to be a long ride. We're going to have all the matches, including this recap, like just at once, basically. Just one quick timeline. And yeah, we're going to enjoy today. But first, we're going to see how much we've enjoyed last week, because last week was really nice as well in terms of matches. No tiebreaker was played, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, no tiebreaker was played. But the matches were really nice to see. Spectacular gameplay by some teams, and let's go over them.
So no tiebreakers, but no sweeps either, which is really nice to see. You kind of think that if there's a big gap in skill between teams late on in a tournament, you don't really want your kind of finals, your premier, your blockbuster matches to be blowouts. And to this year's credit, we've seen remarkably few sweeps all the way throughout the tournament, and finals week was no exception. As you said, 2 pretty close games and 2 kind of not quite so close, but still very interesting as well.
Exactly. So we're going to start with the winners bracket match that happened last week, which is Hong Kong versus South Korea. That's one of those matches that was not really that close. Basically, we did predict it though. It's not really weird, this result. So the results here is 7-2 for South Korea. South Korea taking that match. And we all predicted, basically, especially you and I, were very certain of the fact that, yes, South Korea is going to blow them out of the water no matter what, because the map pool is really tethered towards South Korea at the moment. Hong Kong was probably the best team in the early stage of the tournament, but we knew that they were going to drop off as the difficulty of the map pool increased. That's what happened today. Not today, but last week. And they were still all right for the most part, I believe, the Hong Kong team. I would say definitely looking strong when you consider who's going to try and get second place today. We both believe that South Korea will get first, but we'll get into that in a bit. But we expected a bigger drop-off, I do believe. They were still competitive enough on like a handful of maps. Score differences were fairly large, but sometimes you had a close score gap, such as like 23,000 on No Mods, on in Escape, which actually was won by the Hong Kong team, for example. And there's some others as well, right? There's some close wins on the South Korean side for like 90,000 points. That's not.
Yeah,
like,
well, I was going to
ridiculously
mention
much.
that. So the other win from Hong Kong that you talk about was Bring It On, which was also from the Nomad pool, which was
Yeah.
by a little under 12,000. So Hong Kong won 2 maps by, was it 23,000 and 12,000? The smallest margin of victory for South Korea was that 91,000 on Armageddon that you mentioned. There were several maps where like Hong Kong were winning by nearly 500,000 points on like DT2 in circles. Like Hong Kong kept up reasonably well on no mod, but everywhere else South Korea are clearly like in a class above pretty much every other team in this tournament.
Correct. I do have to mention though that there's this weird thing that happened on the last 2 maps as well for Hong Kong, where one member of the team was like significantly worse than the other members of the team, and if they weren't, if they had 3 members that were pretty much similar in strength, they could have very much taken either point. Maybe not on Mononoke. There was a score gap of 291,000 there, which sounds ridiculously large, right? But it was mostly due to the fact that Auto Fanboy had a fairly bad run on that map with 770,000 points. And on the final map, Hide and Seek, the score difference was 124,000, but Auto Alas just couldn't quite do it for some reason, getting a score of 581,000 on that map. So that's not really up to his standard. We all know that by now. And if he was able to play that well, that would have been another point for Hong Kong as well. So there were some factors that could have turned the score results into something even more interesting than just 7-2, right? Even though we do believe it's representative enough in the sense that some of the maps were just dominated by South Korea, but there's some other weird occurrences within this match where that make me believe that, well, there's probably more potential in Hong Kong. Those were some pretty bad runs, I do believe, and that makes me think that they have a good shot at performing quite all right this week as well. The drop-off wasn't as bad as I expected it to be for Hong Kong.
So Auto LS and Auto Fanboy had, I guess, maybe a little bit below what you would expect performance from them last week. But Sugetsu Kyoka, on the flip side, had a really good performance in that match against South Korea. They participated in 8 of the 9 games and were MVP for the Team Hong Kong in 6 of the 8 games that they played. And they were regularly kind of keeping up with or outscoring members of South Korea. So clearly there is potential there, but unfortunately, against a team like South Korea, you need all of your best players firing on all cylinders almost all of the time. And unfortunately, they just didn't quite have that in that match.
Yeah, exactly. And Sugetsu was definitely the biggest surprise in that match for me as well. And sorry, I just kind of lost my train of thought here. I got banged at the door by my mum. Coincidentally, right now. She's also interested in the matches, I do assume. And I do believe that, like, this week will still be tough for them, but against the USA, which they will play against later today, they might have a good shot, depending on how much they practice. I do believe that they also practiced a lot last week, which, if that's true, maybe this week won't be as strong for them because the USA has been improving like tons this tournament, I do believe as well. But there's still hope, I would say, considering this result against South Korea. It's still better than 7-0. It's still better than 7-1, 7-2. It's not the ugliest possible score by any means, and their performance was still very decent for this map pool, which makes me believe that maybe for the next map pool, this map pool that they're going to have to play with the grand finals will still be manageable for most of their players, which I wouldn't have expected last year, for example, for people like Sugetsu Kyoka, knowing them and having played against them like in past years. They've definitely improved like tons this year as well. So, and then against South Korea,
yeah, Hong Kong are a team that we always know that their players have individually had that kind of really good potential for a great run. But this year they've definitely kind of demonstrated that in a way that they didn't quite manage to kind of click together in previous years. And when you're a team that has taken 2 points off South Korea in a tournament when South Korea have only lost 3 points for the entire duration of the tournament, you've got to be feeling pretty good about your chances and how well you performed, even if this is the end for them and third place is what they take home. This is going to be the best performance by Hong Kong, win, lose, draw, no matter what happens against the US. Third place is going to be the first time that they'll ever have secured a podium, so new podium placer for the CWC 2021, which is really good. But can they get just that one step higher? I think, as you probably agree, Sarton, that first place is off limits to both America and Hong Kong at this point. South Korea just really strong. Would love to be kind of surprised by an upset or a close match there, but I think second is definitely within Hong Kong's grip if they can recover from some of the mistakes and some of the inconsistency that they suffered last week.
Correct, indeed. We'll get into a bit more detail for that upcoming match in a bit. We'll go over the other 3 matches real quick for last week before we speculate a little further. Meaning that we'll move into the losers bracket of last week, starting off with France versus Canada. Two, well, technically French-speaking countries versus each other this late into the tournament. Very nice to see. The last leftover European team of the tournament as well, being France, and this went into favor of France, 7-4, which I'm pretty sure you predicted correct, and I didn't for a change. JBH, that's not something that happens often, is it?
I backed France. I backed them in their match against Hong Kong, and they didn't quite have the energy to get there. But I backed them again, and they didn't disappoint. This was actually a really good match. I think Canada were 3-1 up, quite close to the beginning, and then France went on a real tear in like the second half of the map and came back across pretty much every mod bracket, really.
Yeah, except for Hidden. There's just one, maybe like literally the, not Sadistum of course, because they're really good players still, but probably the worst Hidden performance we've seen in the tournament so far in terms of like total score. France getting a total score of 1,682,000 on a Hidden pick here, which definitely went into favor of Canada in the end, even though their scores weren't like incredibly high either per se. But anything else, Hard Rock, no mods, double time, they just went on a roll towards the end of the match, as you already said, and that led to them winning quite confidently on a lot of these maps too. Like think of score differences above 200,000, above 300,000, significant score differences actually, and it's kind of what we expected from France, but maybe kind of also underperformed a little bit, because I would have said, and I said so throughout the entire tournament, that these two teams have very similar skill sets in terms of Hard Rock, double time, no mod, really fast players, basically very high-end specific players in that sense. And I believe because Canada had the edge over Hidden, over France, that most of the other maps would have been in the coin toss, and that Canada, because of that Hidden advantage, would take the match. That was my personal prediction here. But they didn't have the best run on a lot of these Hard Rock maps. For example, like Kuraki Sekai no Dokoku, with Had, for example, having 58 misses, or Unlucky W with an 832,000 score. That's not something you'd expect to see from Canada. And at the same time, definitely gave France the hope after being down 3-1 to take the match back, which is exactly what happened. They just seem to have lost momentum towards like the middle of the match, Canada that is, and underperforming since from there on, like pretty much every member too, with some exceptions on some maps obviously, but not the baseline you would expect from Canada in terms of performance.
Yeah, France have a lot of players in the kind of vein of Boros and No Life and Electro who excel in these kind of very kind of technical, fast, not necessarily convert exclusively, but some of the maps did have, the specifics from the last round did have convert like patterns, which they really excelled on. So there was frequently a case in every map apart from Hidden, which you obviously have already talked about, where at least one player on the French roster was going on a real tear, got like a really good combo, and that quite often was what made the difference between the two teams. It's just that every time a French player made a mistake, there was someone else who was recovering and kind of surging forward and maintaining that combo. And on the flip side, there were quite a few occasions where Canada would kind of triple miss, or their players would not be. There was never always. What I say? There wasn't always a player who was driving the team forward and able to take advantage of any time when, like, France had a team miss, for example. So a lot of these score differences you see of like 100,000, 200,000, for example, was mostly off the back of kind of not always the same player, but one player who just went on a complete tear and managed to hold that combo way longer than anyone else, and build up that score difference, which Canada really couldn't recover from, unfortunately, without getting big combos of their own.
Correct, indeed. A prime example of this would be in circles being double timed too, I'm pretty sure, where Fui, for example, had a very underwhelming performance with 776,000, whereas the other Canadian players actually did quite alright. Had matching no life score pretty much. Henrik almost getting 1 million as well. On the other hand, you had France having the million plus scores from both Boris and Electra as well. But this was still definitely in their grasp, I would consider, and Fui, if they performed better, would have maybe provided the team enough ammo to actually get that point still. But that just didn't happen.
Well, I mean, Fuhi is still incredibly young, so it must be so much pressure to put on a player at that age to like kind of say, okay, well, now you just need to play at this level for an hour and a half straight, and if you lose, then we go home and we don't get another chance until next year. Like, that's
by the way,
yeah, that's a difficult proposition for anyone, let alone someone who's kind of never really been in that kind of situation before. So I can't imagine how difficult that actually is to do at that age. So big respect to Fuhi, exactly. and they'll come back even stronger, of course.
Just like the entire sentiment of like, oh, by the way, if you perform well these 2 upcoming days, we'll get podium. So just so you know, Fui, that kind of sentiment, that must be really pressuring indeed. For any player, but definitely for like new tournament players, younger players might suffer from that even more as well. I think the entire roster of Canada is fairly on the young end as well. So there's firstly potential for anything that'll happen in like the coming years. I don't think they have any plans of stopping playing so soon.
I sure hope not, because although they kind of, this is what, 6th place, 5th, 6th, they're placing.
5th, yeah.
That's such a good placement. And the experience of this team at such a young age, it really does bode well for the future. So I hope they do stick around. And I hope that they enjoyed this year and then take the experiences from this year into next year.
They'll mature for sure. And that's what I'm hoping for. And a maturing team, or at least a team that's not considered mature yet, that already got top 6, matured, they'll be able to get podium place for sure. That's what I believe. And I can't wait to see that. So next year is going to be so exciting for Canada, I do believe. If they stick to the same roster, if nobody decides to quit, even if a few decided to quit, I believe there's plenty of potential left for them to make a great run. And honestly, this was a great run nonetheless as well. So hats off to Canada for being really well, doing really well in this tournament here, and getting top 6.
Yeah, when you think about all of the teams that didn't make it to the position that, like, teams like Canada and France and Philippines, which we'll cover in a second, made it to, like, there was no China, there was no Italy, there was no Mexico, there was no kind of Poland, like, there was no Taiwan, there was no Germany. These are some insane teams that for years and years and years have been so strong, and it's always been like, well, of course they're going to make it to, like, semi-finals, and of course they're going to make it to finals week. But now they're not, because teams like Canada and France, who have really kind of ground out their performances and built their craft over the past year or 2 years, are coming through. And being a team that has been on the podium before, being a team that has been in finals week before, that doesn't guarantee you anything anymore. And that's a really good thing for future CWC.
Exactly, and like beating teams like Russia and Chile as well as Canada, that's proper performance, and spectacular to see. So, in conclusion, we're so looking forward to you guys in Canada. Like stay here. Don't get too addicted to the game. That's unhealthy, but just get a healthy addiction to it. And I'm very glad and very hopeful we'll see you again next year, right? So yeah, well played to them. And that meant that France made it into the second round of the losers brackets. And the other team that made it to that round is the USA after beating Philippines in a match that was very volatile, if anything. United States won that 7-5, but I'm not sure if you commentated that, JBH, did you?
I don't think I did commentate that one. I was watching.
Oh, you were? Okay.
Yeah.
Because 5-1 start for Philippines, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then USA made the run back, so firstly, my prediction was for USA to very handily take it against Philippines. My predictions last week mentioned that Philippines was the only team that didn't really feel like A+ level, but more like A level from the 6 leftover teams, right? That's what I mentioned. But that was wrong. That was pretty much wrong. They were still really good. Despite the fact that I also believe the USA underperformed in this game, they were still solid enough to take up 5 points and getting that head start and pretty much almost pressuring USA into losing the game very early on already. The score differences were ranging between 200,000-ish to very low score differences every so often as well, such as on Doraemon, where there were a plethora of misses for like a lot of players, but Kagamina Rin almost gave that point away to USA, but Kielzu and Roda really stepped up, for example, score difference there of 11,000. Then afterwards, you had a Hard Rock map where Kagamina Rin once again kind of underperformed, and they still won that point again due to Roda and Bunray with 8,293, which was, again, obviously very close. But from there onwards, USA was able to bolster up, get some really big wins, sometimes very marginal wins as well, such as on circles, and all in all, it was just a roller coaster ride, basically.
Yeah, the beginning of the match was kind of very surprising. Philippines opening up winning, I think, 2 hidden points back to back, which I don't think a lot of people expected by pretty large margins as well. And then Philippines snuck a few extra points. There was 11,000 on Doraemon, which was DT1, I believe. And then there was another 8,000, as you said, on Kuraki Sekai. So, yeah, 5-1 from the beginning. And everyone thought, we thought this was going to be like a win quite heavily in favor of one team. But we weren't expecting it to be the Philippines because, as you said, we thought they were maybe not quite at that tournament level that a lot of the US players have. I mean, when you think of people like Zach that have played in every World Cup since 2013, so like they have experience at performing at this level, and suddenly you thought, well, hold on, like the result that we expected to happen is happening, but it's the complete opposite way around in terms of like Philippines were leading 5-1, and then US came back again. None of those matches were huge margins, like 50,000, 70,000, and we thought, okay, well, the US is going to come back, we're going to get a tiebreaker, but we were just denied right at the end. Like when US got to 6-5 in circles and it was a win in 6,000 points, I thought to myself, come on, we have to get a tiebreaker here. But then Philippines just could not handle Neverland, unfortunately, at all. It was pretty convincing. Nail in the coffin from the US on that last point.
Yeah, by 463,000 points as well. That was the biggest win of either team in that match too. So a very unfortunate way for Philippines to end this match after the initial seeming results of 5-1, and then us expecting that, well, Philippines is actually going to take it after all. Wow, that didn't happen. And yeah, exactly what you pretty much all you said, I agree with that. We might need to ask an archaeologist to see how many CWCs Zach has played by now, but we sadly don't have him on the panel. So
he's hopefully warming up for his match in 35 minutes. So
yeah, exactly. I hope so as well. I saw him type on Discord, so he should be getting ready at 7 a.m. We'll talk about it in a bit, but. Yeah, unfortunate way for Philippines to end it. If they were able to keep up that momentum, or maybe even if they won in circles, they could have very likely taken the game. Considering that the Americans just didn't have their greatest of performances in that match as well, but they sadly just missed that shot and fell short very marginally, 7-5. Still a very good result for Philippines as to end the tournament when you just only look at the scoreline of things, but they almost got that top 4. Then again,
yeah, this is their best finish as well. Lots of teams, obviously, as I said, like Chile, Germany, China, Mexico, Italy, not making it to finals week. So this is the first time Philippines have appeared at finals week. So again, their best performance thus far. Can't be too upset with that. But one thing I was going to say, and I think it was actually confirmed by the man himself. We said in the pre-show for the semi-finals that Roido had been kind of managing a hand injury throughout most of the tournament. And if you kind of go by their scores, you could see that after the first kind of 5 or 6 points, they started to become a little bit less consistent. And it was obvious that maps where Roido would normally have been a shoe-in, like definitely performing, that they weren't kind of appearing in the lobby for those. So I have to kind of go along with that unfortunately for Roido, that injury might have had a significant impact on their performance, and maybe without that it would have been different. But you can only play the team that's put in front of you with the resources you have, and unfortunately if one of your best players has an injury, you have to either work around that injury or you have to just not use that player, and Philippines did their best with those resources that they had.
So got their best results ever.
Yeah, I mean,
quite amazing, really.
I say that Roido was injured, but when you look at like in circles, still managed 970,000 best performance in the lobby, MVP on for Philippines on Neverland as well. That kind of final point. So clearly, Roido is still an incredible player, but just kind of dropped off a little bit at the end there, unfortunately.
Yeah, very deserving of the nicknames, the Roido. But this time around, he wasn't quite able to pull it through to top 4. And I'm not entirely sure how Philippines will actually be looking in the upcoming years. I love to be very optimistic about teams and how they will perform in later years as well. But from what I've seen, from the very reliable source of the bluebirdtwitter.com, some of these players, like Bunray, and I'm pretty sure Roido, for example, as well, have already mentioned the fact that they are not going to be participating in upcoming tournaments anymore, and that Philippines is really going to be reforming their team in the upcoming times. So we won't be seeing a handful of these guys back anymore, and gals.
Don't forget, though, like the motto unofficially, "You're here forever."
Mm-hmm.
It's difficult to leave. I thought I'd taken a little bit of a back seat, and then someone says, "Hey, Toho featured artists, come map some more." So I'm still hanging around. So maybe we'll see them again. Maybe it's just a year out, a little break.
Yeah,
people like Naniwa and EKR have said like never playing CWC again, and then like they take a couple of years out, they come back, and we're like, you haven't lost any skill at all. How are you still so good at the game after not playing for a year? So this is kind of not goodbye, but perhaps until we meet again.
Then again, EKR didn't play this year, so.
Well, I mean it in terms of there have been years when they have played and years when they have not played. So
exactly, and you always have to be skeptical about people telling you that they're quitting this game. Indeed, the majority of players that announce that they'll quit, with this very accurate number of 97%, will eventually come back. And I wonder if that will be the case for these people as well.
The only way to leave The only way to leave is to just silently disappear and never tell anyone that you're going to leave. That is as you said, a statistically proven fact. There is no quitting. As soon as you say I quit, you will be back. It's guaranteed.
Exactly. That's the only methodology to getting out of this game. That's really efficient. But I'm hopeful that they'll be back. If not, this was their golden run, basically. Even though I still believe that they could have done more due to that hand injury, for example. And I also believe sometimes they were a little lackluster in their performance in the early stages as well. It's a weird story for Philippines this year, but a successful one nonetheless. We shouldn't. They aren't ashamed of getting top 6. I'm very sure nobody can really diss them for getting top 6 either. It's still an amazing performance. It's just the notion that it could be maybe like a top 4, maybe like a top 3. That will.
I think it's good to have a healthy amount of like aspiration and say like, oh, I think we could have done better, or I think this was reachable for us, because it helps kind of spur you on for next time. And even if Bunray and Roido aren't appearing next year, hopefully that kind of mentality, that desire to go forward is still present in the rest of their team. And then it kind of gets brought forward further. But as you said, I think they still have to be very happy with their performance, regardless of what could have been. What did happen is they got their best ever performance in a CWC. And there's no if or but or maybe about that. That's hard fact. This is the best they've ever done, and they should be proud of that.
As easy as that, indeed. And that will conclude Philippines for this year. So well played to them, just like Canada. Top 6, both of these teams. Sadly, we don't get a match for 5th place or anything here, but maybe they can screw or something. That's hopeful thinking. That's wishful thinking. Don't take me on that. Take my word. But very well performed by both of these teams. And that gets us to the final match of last week's finals week, being those two teams that won over Canada and the Philippines, and those are France and the US of A. And this was one of the stronger results from the USA, certainly. As we already mentioned, or JBH already mentioned, there were 2 very close matches this weekend and last weekend, and 2 fairly convincing results. And at the start of this match, it seemed like we were going to get another one of these really close matches, but then USA pulled it back like a truck somehow.
Yeah.
Match result being 7-2 in favor of the USA. Starting off this match, the French, I'm pretty sure they were even like leading 2-1. No, okay, they weren't leading, but it was 2-2, the scoreline at the start of the match.
Yeah.
With a big surprise with France winning on a hidden pick against the USA, which was the last thing they expected. They were like going absolutely mental in chat as well. The second they saw that they won that map by 7,000 points. Even though that mostly came down to both teams having a really mediocre performance on that map, especially people like Zach, for example, just not really performing to their standards. And then it just kind of stopped for France. It was like not too close throughout the rest of the match either. Not like blowouts every single map either. You don't have to think about 200 to 300,000 score difference, but they were always around 100k to 140-ish k score difference, meaning that it's, well, at least 3 misses in favor of the United States on every single one of these maps. And it seemed so weird for me, especially. I had the feeling that France would actually have the momentum from last week. Maybe have a little bit more drive compared to USA, as this was their best run in CWC ever, obviously getting top 4. And getting podium just feels that little bit better. Or not even a little bit, that just feels a lot better, I would say. Getting an official podium place. And you'll even get like $40 if you get third. So, I mean, that's always handy to have, right? So, I had expected more from France, but the 2 factors that were at play here for my wrong prediction probably were the fact that, first of all, France didn't perform at 100% of their capacity. On some of the double time picks, for example, I saw some lackluster performance from Boros and Totobos, even like comparing them against their match versus Canada they literally had the day before. And secondly, United States played so much better this game than they did versus the Philippines. It wasn't even like close. Well, okay, not like tons better, but definitely a lot better than they did against the Philippines, which kind of kind of messed with my brain a little bit, thinking that, oh wait, well, Philippines performed better. I mean, sorry, France performed better versus Canada than United States when they played Philippines. So kind of France, dude. Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah, we
Probably
got
not.
lulled into a kind of false sense of France's strength and America's weakness, I think. They looked a lot more even in the lead up to this match, and either France ran out of steam a little bit, or maybe the US just found that kind of higher gear that they've kind of used to get their two previous podiums, and it will obviously be their third. That made it, as you said, a little less close than we was probably have expected. But France, similar kind of story to what I mentioned for Philippines. It is the best performance that they've ever had in CWC. They're a team that have always had really strong players, and everyone's always kind of hyped them up to have massive potential. But then they've had problems in getting like their best players all in the same place at the same time over the years. They've not had certain people being active, and it's been like, oh, if they had this player, then they would have done like this. This would have been who they would have been perfect for this role, or so and so. So this has certainly been the most consistent France that we've seen in the past few years, and that's a big part, I think, of why they got to the stage that they got to, this fourth place finish. But when the consistency started to fall away a bit against the US, it was a big part of their undoing as well, because the American team really did find that gear that they needed at the perfect time. They finished fourth before in, I think, 2017? Maybe 2017. So they know how it feels to miss out on a podium. France are learning that for the first time, and hopefully the podium will be theirs to claim in a future year, maybe next year.
Yeah, right. It's kind of unfortunate, again, just like the other teams. Seeing people lose is unfortunate, is basically what I'm getting at here.
It is, but someone has to lose if someone else is going to win, unfortunately.
Exactly.
France were just falling at the final hurdle here, unfortunately, for them. Yep. But really kind of happy for the US that they found that consistency, that skill back that we maybe thought, this is not looking too good for them, just in time for what is going to be their sternest test of the tournament, which is a really, really strong Hong Kong roster in this kind of third place match, effectively, that's coming up in just over 20 minutes.
Yeah, it was definitely the last minute save of the USA here, and this is the USA you want to see. This is the USA we expect to see every year. We keep mentioning the fact that Russell isn't there, and I think that finally last week they showed a performance that would have been alike to the likes of Russell being in the team as well. I think that a USA this year would still be competitive against the USA of last year, which sounds weird because you'd expect teams to get better over the years, but sometimes you have a few like drop off because some people quit, and because of that the team might be a little less stable. But that's what we kind of expected would happen against USA, but they improved a lot throughout the tournament for some reason. For example, Lexi getting that new computer really helps with his hard work. Normal performance.
The Lexi final form of having a real keyboard
yeah,
did show up pretty well.
It makes a big difference for a lot of things, because you guys have to remember that this man played with a MacBook 2015 edition for the longest time, and he still got top 10 in the world with that laptop of his. So imagine this person with a way better setup, way less delay. That's just a world of difference, and that could make him like the #1 in the world if he wants to, if he really tries. And
certainly enough to make mere mortals like us feel very inadequate. And I know that Lexi wouldn't feel that way because they're one of like the nicest players in all of Catch. But yeah, you make us feel a little bit bad even if you don't intend to, Lexi.
How dare you, Lexi? How dare you? I used to be a 2-digit as well, but now look at me, Lexi. But well done by USA. Class performance last week with that match. Definitely picking up the pace towards the end of the game. And I believe that they hopefully will be able to pick up that momentum this week as well. Considering that they were really afraid versus France, playing versus France. There's this track record between France and USA where both teams have won against the other throughout the years. And this year they already played France in an earlier stage, and USA lost versus France there on a tiebreaker too, I do believe. Yeah, on the
that was quarterfinals in this year's CWC. France did win that one on the tiebreaker. They had a really good performance on that tiebreaker as well. I think they won the whole team. There was only one miss. That did put US down into the losers bracket a little bit early. But France then had to compete against Hong Kong. So I'm very interested to see how this US Hong Kong match goes. So we'll chat about that in a little bit. But
we can get onto that right now, because that's kind of where I want to go with my story here as well. The fact that this match versus France that the USA played last week, they had everything to lose in that game. If they lost, they wouldn't have gotten podium, top 3, the badge, the fame, the $40 or $80 if you get even further, right? They could have lost everything there, and that was at stake, and that gets you really nervous. Right now versus Hong Kong, I think both Hong Kong and America are satisfied with where they're at. If they finish third, that's fine for either team. Hong Kong getting top 3 for the first time ever, that's a spectacular achievement. And I believe USA is also at peace at the fact that, well, Hong Kong might be stronger this year. Which means that because of that, you'll be less nervous when playing that game, right? Which could lead to better performance as well. That's what I think for both teams. So, getting into that, finals today, grand finals. So we're first going to have the match versus Hong Kong and the USA. And then the winner of that match is going to play versus South Korea, like literally right after the game. And yeah, my predictions and your predictions, I'm not entirely sure what you think so far, JBH, but this is going to be probably, well, at least Hong Kong versus USA is probably going to be the most interesting game of this weekend, or today, considering the power of South Korea. We'll get into that in a little bit when we speculate any sort of chance that either America or Hong Kong has versus South Korea. But first, Hong Kong, America. I think both teams will be at like A level today. They'll be less nervous. I believe that they practiced the map pool plenty this time as well, because it's the last day anyway. You might as well, in that sense. There's one thing that I'm really worried about though for the USA, and that's the fact that they're playing at 8 a.m.
They asked for this. They asked for this, so this is on them. If it backfires, it backfires. But
true, it might backfire though. That's what I'm getting at here. I do believe that this is a very spontaneous decision. It's so weird because most of the time, United States hates playing early.
We've always seen them like, can we reschedule to something that's like almost in the dead of night because our players aren't available until kind of the evening. So yeah, this is a really strange kind of turn of events, the way it's panned out, but this is what they asked for, and Hong Kong have either agreed to it, or maybe Hong Kong proposed it and the US thought this was the one they wanted to go for. So this is what we're going to have. And I think I'm going to add on to something that you mentioned a second ago, Sutton, that neither of these teams, with all due respect, feels that they have any realistic chance of beating South Korea, right? So there's going to be very few instances in the match for either team where they think we have to conserve energy so that we can do well against South Korea. Even if they conserve energy, I think it's still a bridge too far to expect them to beat the strength of South Korea right now.
Mm-hmm.
So they can use their full strength against each other both at the same time, and as you said, they'll be happy whether they win, they'll be happy if they can lose, and they'll both know that the championship this year was beyond them. So I agree with you that it's going to be a really, really good match. And I don't know, should we do predictions, or have you got more to add on?
I'm still actually like I'm literally just trying to reason my prediction.
The cogs are turning.
Exactly. But yeah, what I want to consider for this match mostly is the fact that I believe USA might be. It feels like they get like 15% stronger every stage this tournament for some reason. Like they just get a random ass buff. Hong Kong has this drop off towards the end stages, but it hasn't been as bad as we predicted. And then there's the schedule. So USA having to play really early. I see Sekre in chat here saying they're all awake, and it was Hong Kong that asked for this time, but they all agreed to it being better. Fair. But I still
what
think
you
that's
want to
going to
do.
play a big role. I still believe that playing at 8 a.m. plays a really big role when playing against Hong Kong. That I'm pretty sure it's like around 8 p.m. for them. Maybe a little off.
I think Hong Kong China is all UTC +8, which would make it about 8 p.m.
Yeah. So I think USA might have made a bit of a mistake going for this sort of schedule, but they'll have to prove us wrong in that case. They'll just have to prove us wrong, and that's all they have to do. It's gonna be in about 50 minutes anyway, so there's not a lot of time in between this precast and the actual match itself. Though I am still predicting it might be Hong Kong with a score of about 7-5. That's what I'm thinking. I think that they're gonna take the hidden maps fairly handily for the most part. I do believe that, considering exactly the fact that they aren't really considering South Korea in the tournament anymore, they just considered the opponent they're facing right now. I believe that the thing Hong Kong might have done is just practice hitting like a bunch of madmen, because they believe that they can take all those points versus the USA. And then we'll just have to see how well Auto-LS performs this week, for example, and if Sugetsu Kyoka is going to be as good as they were last week, because the map pool is still harder.
Yeah.
And that would then again favor USA a little bit, but it's really tough to call. I can see it go either way, but depending on the amount of practice and depending on how much the time that USA is playing at will affect their performance, I think Hong Kong might be able to take like 7-5-ish. What do you think?
I was actually going to say that I had Hong Kong for a very similar scoreline as you, but now I'm thinking maybe I should switch things up a bit so we have a little bit of variety for our kind of final Suity Fruity. I do think that the US have taken a huge gamble by playing at this time, but it's a decision that they made collectively. They agreed to. They've had plenty of time to prepare, so I don't think that they're kind of being caught completely blindsided here, that if this is something that they signed up to. I do think that Auto-LS and Auto Fanboy do certainly have the potential to play at the level that Sugetsu Kyoka was playing at last week. And if two, but even if one player performs at the level that Sugetsu Kyoka was playing at last week, it's going to be very hard for the US to take many points off of Hong Kong. Because I think Sugetsu Kyoka was clearly one of the standout performances of all of the teams that played in Finals Week 1 last week. And because the maps are getting so much more difficult now, you only really need one carry player to build a massive lead and just put the game completely out of reach of your opponents. Unless the opponents also have a person on their side who is filling that role. And when you look at the US roster, I only really see Seka being that person that, aside from Hidden, because we know that not a Hidden fan, as being that player that can really drive the team forward, put in a massive score, and put the game out of reach of Hong Kong. Not to say that I'm sleeping on players like Kisetsu Notori and obviously Zach on Hidden, but I think that without Rustled, Seka is definitely the leader of that team, and there'll be a lot of pressure.
Sleeping on one person though. You're not mentioning the creeper in any of your story, and I believe that this map pool is definitely tethered towards a person like the creeper as well.
Definitely come out as a kind of a standout player who's made massive gains so far in this tournament, but I'm not sure if this is maybe a bridge just slightly too far for Decreeper. I would love to be proven wrong, because
Really tough.
if we have like Seka and Decreeper doing really well, and then on the other side we have like Auto LS and Sugetsu doing really well, this is going to be a really exciting prospect to see who can edge out the other in this match. So yeah, we'll see how it goes.
That's why I believe that time is so determinal. If this were played like later in the day, where USA would have had the practice, or for example, if you would swap the times, if Hong Kong had to play in the morning and USA would have played at night, which could have been the case, you know, that the schedules could allow for that, basically, I believe USA would have taken it. So it's just.
Well, we'll find out. I mean,
nagging feeling that this 8 a.m. start is just really rough for them.
Well, we'll find out in 10 minutes. So
yeah, exactly. But lastly, we have South Korea for grand finals as well. Before we're done with this final Suity Fruity of the CWC, just quickly going over the final game. We already mentioned it a handful of times this Suity Fruity, but I think neither team really has any sort of chance versus South Korea. I think there's too many things favoring South Korea. This map pool, I think that they're going to be less tired because the other team will have played the match beforehand. The other team will have to win twice because they come from the losers bracket. I just don't see any chance here. 0% for any of these teams winning against South Korea. And it's just due to the fact that South Korea got this monstrous roster again this year, whereas all the teams kind of had to scramble for players a little bit, like USA, for example, kind of, you know, getting somebody like Kisa Tsunotori in, which you would not expect for the CWC team, at least. South Korea didn't have that issue, hasn't had it in any year. They've performed incredibly well throughout all stages. I think they only lost 3 maps so far in the entire tournament.
They've played 41 maps in the tournament and they've lost. So they've won 41 maps and they've lost 3. No other team comes anywhere close to their record this tournament. And even though they aren't kind of fielding some of their, what most people would consider historically their best players, people like Rockmer, people like Spectator, they're so strong. Like, it's almost impossible to see any other outcome. So I think either team, Hong Kong or the US, winning and getting second place, great, brilliant, fantastic. Beyond that, maybe there's a little bit of glory to go for and say that we took 3 points off South Korea, because so far I think Chile have taken 1 and Hong Kong have taken 2. But I think at that point you're kind of just playing for fun and bragging rights rather than kind of trying to take a victory and that championship. But South Korea have won the tournament 5 times now. They're currently the defending double champions. They've won it in 2019 and 2020. Looking for that kind of triple that no team has done before. They've come close. They won twice in 2014 and 2015, but no one has won 3 in a row.
Exactly.
I don't think there's anything really that can stop them from making that history this year.
I always felt like China would be the only team in this tournament being able to scale as well as South Korea, but their performance was lackluster in the earlier stages. And because of that, because the United States was able to eliminate China already, there's just no team left that scales as well in this map pool, will perform as well in this map pool. And it basically means GG for either USA or Hong Kong. But maybe some miraculous event will happen. You can never know in advance. Maybe South Korea misses players. You can't know in advance. I don't believe they do. I believe they're fully prepared for this as well. And because of that, I believe a scoreline. You shouldn't be shocked at a scoreline of 7-0. I would say. I believe that either Hong Kong or USA might be able to grab a point or two, 1 or 2. But you shouldn't be shocked at like a staggering result from South Korea. That's what
I don't want to see a clean sweep. I don't want to see a 7-0. No one really wants to see a 7-0. But it's kind of bad that I would not be surprised, as you said, if that is the result. I think the best that either the US or South Korea could aim for is 7-2. If South Korea have a little bit of a bad day, maybe someone can take 3 points, just so that we have a nice South Korea lose 1 point, South Korea lose 2 points, South Korea lose 3 points. But I don't think there's any doubt in almost anyone's minds that South Korea are going to be victorious here and get their third championship in a row.
Yeah, it might be a bit of a fizz, but you guys shouldn't be, you lads and gals shouldn't be too unhappy about it either. This was a great tournament throughout. So it's not like we're ending on a sad note thinking that, oh, it's hopeless for any of these teams. No, there's been amazing results throughout. There's teams that got into places where they've never been at before. And I believe that shows that CWC is still one of the greatest tournaments being played in the OSU ecosystem in that sense. And I believe that this will be a glorious match between Hong Kong and USA. I'm rooting for both teams to do their very utmost best, giving us an entertaining match. And I wish them the best of luck with South Korea. And of course, I also wish South Korea good luck. Flex those muscles for a final time, you know. You can do it. And that kind of rounds it up for Suity Fruity this year.
The last one, yes.
Wow, that was it. So, been in every single one of these episodes, basically, sort of being the jerry-rigged host here. JBH, thank you so very much for being here, like multiple times as well as all the other people on Suity Fruity. You guys were great. I appreciate it tons for all your predictions and all your wonderful commentary on those matches. So, thank you very much, JBH.
Of course, pleasure to be here and dose some statistics out and my terrible opinions. Thank you everyone for having me, and of course Satan as well for giving yours thoughts too. But yeah, we're going to take a short break, be back in a little under 5 minutes with the final, Hong Kong versus the United States. It's going to be very exciting, so I hope you all stick around. Take some time to grab a quick drink, a snack, but do be back here in a little under 5 minutes for that match. You don't want to miss it.
Yeah, I'm fired up for this match, and I hope you guys are as well. So, see you in about 4-ish minutes. Go cheer for your favorite team, and let's have a great day today, everybody. Final day for CWC 2021. Can't wait to see what's going to go down, and it's been a great tournament, and I can't wait to see the results of the upcoming matches. See you in a bit, everybody.
Just those 2 matches to go, one back-to-back, one after the other, and hope you all enjoy. Thank you for watching Suity Fruity.